Story 1. People who are constantly trying to prove that they are tough or dangerous. Story 2. Anybody who talks about the details of their sexual life in public. I am not a Puritan, but there is a time and place for that. Story 3. Passive-aggressive behavior is unproductive. Life is too short. Just say what you mean or feel. Story 4. People with huge personalities are usually abrasive and annoying to be around, with rare exceptions. As an extreme example, my dad worked with a man who called himself the Gob. He always wanted to be the center of attention, and if he thought people were not paying attention, he would shout something at the top of his lungs to make sure he was heard. He thought this was endlessly funny, but nobody else did. Story 5. The one-upper. They will also brag about themselves. If someone else shares a cool experience, the one-upper will interject and state that they had something similar but much more elaborate happen to them. They cannot stand not being the center of attention. Story 6. Overbearing and controlling people who allow no space for others to live, think, and act as they wish. Story 7. Toxic positivity. I am cynical and bitter. Positivity just irritates me. Story 8. Supposed alpha males are not true alphas. They are misogynists on a testosterone-driven impulse preying on men's insecurities. It is very unpleasant. Story 9. They have to make everything about themselves. When someone is celebrating a promotion, they have to talk about their own job. When someone gets in a car accident, they have to talk about theirs. They may think they are relating, but it is really just a cry for attention. Story 10. People who make politics their entire identity and feel the need to educate everyone who does not share their mindset. Story 11. People who claim they tell it like it is. Funny how their so-called no-nonsense attitude only ever seems to be targeted at those of weak social standing. More questionable is the fact that they are often very quick to lose their temper when the spotlight is pointed back at them. Story 12. The type of person you cannot teach is very difficult to work with. Story 13. Narcissistic. I work with one. I asked him once if he has ever been wrong, and he said with a straight face, "Once I thought I was wrong, but it turns out I was wrong," meaning he was wrong to think he was wrong. He is not a bad person. He just cannot see any further than his nose. Story 14. Extremism in any form is harmful. It does not matter what you are fanatical about. Story 15. Literalists. The more time I spend with one, the more they annoy me. There is such a thing as exaggeration, metaphor, simile, and various imaginative flights. Each does not need to be viewed with puzzlement, disdain, and immediate dissection. Story 16. Needy people. It does not matter to me if you have other great characteristics. The moment I feel neediness from someone, I cannot stand them. Story 17. Professional victims. No accountability. Everything is done to them, not by them. Story 18. The mirror. They do not have their own personality and try to mimic the people around them to fit in. I would rather hate you for being yourself than hate you because you are not your true self. Story 19. Two-faced. Says and acts one way around some people and then acts completely differently when those people are not around. It makes me wonder who hurt them and why they do not have a consistent personality. Story 20. The people who turn everything into a competition, even when you are just trying to relax. Story 21. Judgmental people who say things in front of the person they are judging. It actually causes anger in me when someone I am with talks negatively about someone in their presence. Also, people who think that making others feel uncomfortable or disgusted is funny. Story 22. People who reflect their insecurity onto others. People who have only read about 4 books and think they are smart enough to teach you. People who have no empathy for others. People who hate small children and literally bully them. People who would do anything to blend into certain social groups and lose their true selves. Story 23. Those who begin by saying, "I have a dark sense of humor. I can appreciate dark humor, but you have to know your audience." Those who say this are almost always the type of person to make a sexist, racist, or homophobic joke within minutes of meeting people, then follow up with, "It's just a joke," and believe everyone is too sensitive for thinking they are unpleasant. Story 24. People who talk behind your back. I have had enough of those people. Story 25. Mean girls. I have seen actual female teenagers who fit the description. Story 26. People who cannot own up to their mistakes. I cannot stand it when someone will not admit that they did something wrong and instead feel as though someone else is always the problem. Story 27. Those people who do not care about others and only care about your status. Story 28. It is always about them. Do they realize that we all have problems and go through challenges? But the world stops when they experience something difficult, and all our effort has to be focused on them. Story 29. Trump supporter going around swinging a false semen cup and thinking Europe is a country but still gets to vote makes up for a confounding eldritch horror straight from a Lovecraft book. Story 30. Someone who thinks everyone else is like them, and if someone is clearly different, having led a different life, they have a hard time believing it, almost to the point of refusing to believe it. Story 31. Contrarian without purpose. We understand you are not like everyone else, but ignoring experts, evidence, common sense, decency, logic, and the reality in front of you is not rebellious. It is immature behavior compensating for insecurity and lack of original ideas. Story 32. Overly friendly and positive people seem insincere, which is why I prefer not to engage with them. Story 33. I can't stand people who are always sarcastic or ironic or speak as if everything is a joke. I think it is to avoid coming off as embarrassing. I love earnestness, sincerity, and trying hard. It is what connection and fulfillment are based on. Everything else seems like a way to avoid pain. Story 34. People who imitate everything you say and pretend that they are unique and original. Story 35. People who are rude for no reason, attention seekers, bigots, and people who make fun of others' mental or physical disabilities. Story 36. People who try too hard to be mean girl-like or judgmental. It shows insecurity and they are very draining to be around. Story 37. The know-it-all who cannot resist correcting everyone, even when no one asked. Story 38. Homophobes. I do not brag about my sexual orientation. I just live my life. Why do they keep asking me if I am gay? Story 39. Neighbor who is constantly starting conflicts with other neighbors. We are all close together on this large urban street. Life is stressful enough without her constantly creating tension where everyone should be able to relax. Story 40. Non-personality refers to individuals who display different personalities depending on who they are around, so you do not know who they actually are. Story 41. The type that starts a conversation with you and leaves midway while you are talking. Story 42. Loud individuals. Why does the entire bar have to hear everything you say? Story 43. Angry and aggressive people, especially those who experience road rage and difficult individuals. Story 44. Know-it-alls are people who believe they know everything about everything and do not stop talking about it. Story 45. Right-wing religious people, even if they are nice, are often genuinely unintelligent, and conversations with them are unbearably shallow. Additionally, many self-victimizing engineering professionals condescend to everyone to release their pent-up frustration. Story 46. Gay people who make being gay their entire personality. Like, dude, chill out. I'm gay too, but I don't need everyone within a 500-foot radius to know it. Maybe tell me something about yourself other than the fact that you are gay. Perhaps what kind of car you drive, your favorite color, and which Ace Attorney game is your favorite. I don't think I'm asking for a lot here. Story 47. The type that is always looking for faults to point out in others. When they do, they call it out in front of others, knowing their own sense of righteousness. This often appears to be preemptive deflection. Story 48. The obsessive and compulsive selfish behavior when people do not get a hint to leave each other alone and keep asking the same questions every day. Story 49. Abrasive, sarcastic people. The kind who are perpetually rude, tell cruel jokes, and justify it by saying, "That's just my vibe. Anyone who dislikes it is just too sensitive to handle me." It reeks of insecurity. You are not a badass Kevin or Karen. You are an asshole. Story 50. Jealous, the type that is pathologically jealous and does not want to acknowledge it. Story 51. Narcissistic or super-dominant individuals think they are better than everyone and belittle people at any given chance. Story 52. The fake, as I like to call it, is the persona that many people imitate to get what they want from others, such as attention. For example, pathological liars. Story 53. People who turn everything into a debate or competition. The situation or conversation may not even be serious, but they make it serious so they can argue and always be right. Story 54. Oh yeah? That is nothing. That personality, the one-upper or competitive conversationalist. Story 55. People who only care about their reputation and think they rule the world. Story 56. For me, narcissistic behavior, manipulation, lying, and the inability to keep promises were common. I experienced too much of this in my childhood from some key family members. Story 57. Borderline personality disorder is a real condition. We all know someone with it. It is characterized by conflicting feelings such as, I love you, get away from me, and I need this, but when I get it, it is still not right. People with borderline personality disorder often feel unsettled about their identity and may believe that whatever others do will be wrong. This disorder frequently co-occurs with other diagnoses. As a practitioner, friend, or loved one, supporting someone with borderline personality disorder is absolutely exhausting and frustrating. Story 58. People pleasers. You never know when you are crossing their boundaries, and they will still resent you for it. Also, it is insincere, sometimes bordering on manipulative. Story 59. I see many people saying know-it-alls. This makes me a little confused. Do they mean people who do not accept when they are wrong even when faced with proof, or people who have a broad range of knowledge and can explain different subjects? I can understand if it is the first one, but not if it is the second. If you say something factually wrong, and a know-it-all comes to tell you that you might be wrong, is that a bad thing? Would you prefer to continue to believe your own theory instead of the factually proven one? Story 60. Loudmouth know-it-all usually found on the bar stool next to you. Story 61. Liars often combined with narcissism, and people who believe they are always right. Story 62. Bubbly is not a personality trait, but some people will tell you it is. Yes, you know who they are. Story 63. People who choose apathy over empathy. Big noters are people who always talk about their achievements. Selfishness is when people always put their needs before anyone or anything else. Story 64. I dislike selfish people and betrayers, including cheaters. I believe many will understand this. Story 65. Overly extroverted. I don't mind extroverted people, but I have a friend who is overly extroverted. Sometimes when she does something embarrassing, she embarrasses me too. It doesn't help that I am an introvert and a socially anxious person. Story 66. The popular high school girls in movies. You know what I am talking about, and I really dislike them a lot. Story 67. Mostly people have no self-reflection. It is even worse if they are hypocrites as well. Story 68. To hate a personality is very broad. I can dislike certain attributes about them. I call these traits. Story 69. Everything mentioned here, including the dramatic victim mentality. Those who always suffer and believe they have it worse than you, but they are not at fault. Story 70. The kind of person who holds resentment and calculates what everyone else owes them. For example, a coworker offered you a ride. If you didn't ask for it, you assumed the offer was made without any strings attached. This is a reasonable assumption because there was no price to be discussed, and you thought your coworker was offering you a ride out of kindness. You gladly accepted it. You both got to the destination and you thanked them. Case closed, right? Except it wasn't. Months later, you learned from another coworker that coworker A was bad-mouthing you behind your back. The reason was that you never offered them a ride when you accepted one from them earlier. When you confronted coworker A and pointed out that they never once requested a ride from you and, as far as you know, never had a problem getting where they needed to be. If they had needed a ride and asked, you would have gladly offered one if it was within your capability. Coworker A countered that you should have offered. Anyway, because they offered you a ride, and you accepted, so you should have offered regardless. Sounds unreasonable, doesn't it? Because it is. They never asked for a ride or mentioned needing one. They never said anything about you owing them a ride, favor, or money when they offered. In fact, they never said anything to you about anything. But somehow you are supposed to know that you owe them, and they keep telling everyone how you took advantage of them by not offering a ride when you accepted one from them. That's the kind of ridiculous favor calculation I'm talking about. They did something nice for you, you assumed it was out of kindness, and now you supposedly owe them, like some kind of parasitic social loan shark. I don't know if there's a specific term for people like that, but if there is, I would appreciate someone letting me know. Story 71. Self-righteous. My mother and father are extreme narcissists, so there was no escaping this. Story 72. People who think they are always right or better at everything, the type of type A personalities who can't let anyone do anything because it is not good enough, act like martyrs for taking on everything, believing nobody else is competent enough. They then expect everyone to be very appreciative for all they do because no one helps. Story 73. The person who always has a bigger, better story no matter what you say. Story 74. Narcissists I am not even going to pretend to entertain. My mother is a social worker and taught us from a young age how to quickly tell if someone is narcissistic so we could avoid them. There is no reasoning you can do with someone who is so full of themselves. I do not even want to try. Story 75. Entitlement. People who think they deserve things just for existing and can do anything they want, no matter how much they bother others, are the worst. Story 76. The narcissist, both grandiose and covert. They are usually harmless in very brief interactions, but extended exposure can have serious negative effects. Story 77. People who simply know will regret dropping out of college, not having children, moving out, not being a Christian, and so on. Story 78. People cannot just be grateful and happy with what they have. They use their successes to put other people down to make themselves feel superior. I ended a 10-year friendship because of this. Story 79. Not hate per se, but I usually avoid unauthentic people. You are never interacting with them. You are interacting with a facade of who they want to project. It is annoying for a short time and dreadful in the long run. They are bland, boring, and too nice. Just be your true self. You are an interesting person deep inside. Show us your real self. Story 80. Uptight type A personalities find it hard to enjoy life around others. I feel like they have to be half miserable, always worried about making everything perfect all the time. Story 81. Treat me like royalty and do not say anything against me or anything I say, think, or feel. Story 82. Smug person. The I know what I am doing upsets people, but I also know it is not illegal or reportable, so I am going to keep doing it to get a win types. Story 83. Pretentious and manipulative. Cannot even pretend to like these two personalities. Story 84. The intentional kind of not understanding. If you cannot do something because of a physical or mental disability, you are forgiven. However, if it is just because you lack the motivation to learn, that is your responsibility. Story 85. The one who has to be the center of attention all the time. They often do this in a way that makes everyone else feel boring, just like some people can only seem smart if they make you feel stupid. Also, those who think being rude is a cool personality trait. Story 86. Closed-minded people who refuse to change their minds even when presented with cold, hard facts. Story 87. Narcissistic people are excessively in love with themselves. It reminds me of when a dog licks itself. Story 88. The kind that reminds me of my mother, malignant narcissist and weaponized incompetence. Story 89. People who are extremely nice to everyone in the workplace but play individuals against each other and manipulate behind their backs. Story 90. Preppy and K-pop fan and Taylor Swift fan. You are not unique just because you have bad music. Story 91. People ask for advice and want you to listen to their problems but then do the exact opposite of what you suggested. When their problems get worse, they come back upset that your advice did not work, saying, "You did not take my advice from the beginning, so how could it possibly work? I have stopped engaging with many people who act this way, much to their shock and frustration. I no longer want to be part of the cycle of drama in your life. Story 92. Loud and obnoxious. 'Cause a lot of drama but always say they can't stand drama. Story 93. Arrogant but actually intelligent and knowledgeable. They are insufferable. Story 94. How would you classify a person who pushes for information by pretending they care about your health and well-being? I had someone at my job that I barely said hi to ask if I was okay. I said I was fine, and they kept asking as if I were a child and would not back off. I just walked away. Story 95. That frat boy type who thinks he is the best thing going. The guy who probably peaked in high school because he was the football favorite. Then in college, everyone adored him and overinflated his ego. Now he is the manager who is always using corporate catchphrases because he wants the bosses to notice him, and they do. He gets the best car, the beautiful trophy wife, the big house, all the promotions and bonuses at work. Story 96. Narcissistic behavior is absolutely the worst. Yet, it seems to be the most common among Americans. Story 97. Do you all like your words being monitored by the strict hall monitor? The captain of the kickball team? Why do we even have a constitution? Where do we live? Story 98. Know-it-alls and hypocrites. My mother is both, and after years of listening to her nonsense, I get irritated at everything she says. Even if it is as simple as "come here," I just want her to stop talking. I do not know if she is going to conveniently forget all this crazy stuff she is telling me or simply lie about it. Story 99. Pathological liars lie about everything, even things that do not matter. They lie simply to lie or to manipulate your perception of them. Story 100. Overgrown adolescents who still have a high school mentality. Story 101. Fake nice. People who seem friendly and kind to others, then speak negatively about them behind their backs. Also, people who cause drama and then act like they are the victim. Story 102. Arrogant people who do not really listen when they are criticized. Story 103. Arrogance is the root of many problems I have with other people. I hear many speak in absolutes about what is happening in the world, as if they could know for certain what goes on behind closed doors. It is ridiculous, considering we cannot even trust everything we see with our own eyes these days. So many things can be faked or lied about. It just makes them sound arrogant and delusional. The same goes for sharing opinions without being asked. This is wild to me. I cannot imagine assuming that everyone cares about or values my opinion on everything. I would never want to assume that because I would be worried it would make me look conceited and clueless. Close-mindedness is being forceful with one's own opinions or personal taste. I have always hated people who cannot let others enjoy different tastes in music or TV shows in peace. To me, it is a sign of unintelligence. People who unapologetically refer to themselves as an asshole. Fun fact. Not once have I met someone who called himself an asshole and was simply that. Each and every time, that person has had either narcissistic or antisocial personality disorder. You are not an asshole. You are a remorseless sociopath and a waste of oxygen. Story 104. It is important to listen to yourself when people around you hint once or twice that they do not really care to listen or pay attention to others, or are narcissistic and always one-upping or bragging. Ignore that energy. I have people who love me unconditionally and are uplifting and fun to be around. Enjoy dragging down everyone you meet. Story 105. When people make being well-traveled their entire personality. Story 106. People who pretend to be something they are not when they are actually manipulative. Story 107. Domestic abusers who are women but pretend to be victims. Story 108. Those who ask for your help and then tell everyone that they did it all on their own, and if something goes wrong, they blame you, saying it was your idea. Story 109. The perpetual victim. Do not make being a victim your whole identity. Story 110. Bully, aggressive, arrogant, wanting to appear violent and often involved in criminal activities. You know those individuals moving in groups. They are recognizable by their style, way of speaking, and behavior. Story 111. People who hear something about you and believe it without asking for your side of the story. Story 112. Those who are never wrong, psychology, and other social sciences do not apply to them. Story 113. People who play the victim despite being caught red-handed. My brother was in an accident and lied about his whereabouts to his parents and to us. He is recovering the bike he wrecked. The body is damaged, but everything works. He lied about the exact location of the bike. He blamed the bike for not having a brake. But when we arrived, both brakes were working. He also said the throttle was broken before the accident, which we did not believe. He recovered, but my brother did not apologize for the inconvenience he caused, not only to us who helped him, but also to the person he borrowed the bike from. He did apologize after a few days, but he keeps blaming the bike. The owner no longer speaks to him. The owner really loves the bike and maintains it daily, so we all find it impossible that it lost its brakes or that the throttle malfunctioned. Story 114. People with high ambition beyond their capabilities can be frustrating. It may sound harsh, but experiencing it is very annoying. Story 115. Basically, my friend. Oh, your mom sent you a ton of chocolate? You will definitely manage to eat all of it. Haha, are you joking? I'm so lonely I went home with my ex. But it's fine, nothing happened. My boyfriend won't mind. Yes, my ex is taken, but I didn't want to be alone. I made out with a friend who likes me, but I decided I don't like him back. This guy talks to me all the time, but I don't like him. I still talk to him every day. If you and ex don't work out, you can marry a toaster or a cat. Some people do that. Kidding. Once I find her guy's name, it's game over. I have screenshots. Story 116. It's all about me. Even another person's birthday will somehow become about them. Story 117. Anyone who ties their entire personality to a specific thing, whether Marvel fans or Christians, does not define who they truly are. I am interested in knowing who you are as an individual. Story 118. Pathological victims. It is always someone else's fault. They usually badmouth people and complain constantly. I cannot stand them and will not give them any more of my time. Story 119. I am a mean girl with a heart of gold. No, Gabby, you are just unpleasant. Story 120. People who portray themselves as genuinely good but manipulate your emotions and are actually harmful. Story 121. People who constantly use others' existence as a punchline for their jokes are not appealing. It is an easy way to be turned away. Story 122. The loner with a hair-trigger anger who owns many firearms. Story 123. People who withhold information until it is useful to them or to make someone else look bad. I understand that honesty is important, but when you wait months to tell the truth about something, it is no longer honesty, and there is almost always an ulterior motive. Story 124. Acts morally superior but is actually despicable. Story 125. Very loud, in the middle of a group of extroverts, who do not know when to be quiet. Story 126. Entitlement. Older people who think the world works for them. Young people who litter. Individuals who think rolling coal is funny. People who use derogatory words because they can. People who hurt others without a second thought. People who believe the rules do not apply to them. People who think sexual dialogue about their coworkers is funny. People who express enough racism to see if others will play along. Story 127. People who come across as unpleasant while in a position of authority, even if they are very kind outside of their responsibilities. Story 128. People who cannot admit when they are wrong and just keep arguing. People who cannot see the fault in their own actions. Story 129. Victim mentality. The last girl I was with kept saying, patriarchy this and patriarchy that. We were watching Pineapple Express, and 20 minutes in she asked, where are all the women stoners? Does this movie think women don't smoke weed too? Insufferable. Story 130. I don't like people who have no confidence in their abilities and feel the need to tell everyone. The kind of people who say, my life sucks and everything I do is terrible. There are two subtypes of these people. 1. The person who says, I'm an asshole, and leans hard into it because they think saying it gives them permission to be a terrible person. 2. The person who says, "My life sucks," and then does nothing to fix it or change their perspective. Both lack introspection and simply want others to fix their problems and clean up their messes. Usually, they also project their insecurities onto others and do nothing to improve. Story 131. I find most personality types interesting. The only one I cannot stand is the fake assert your dominance alpha personality. People like that have no chill. Story 132. Anyone who describes themselves as brutally honest is actually just saying, "I am unpleasant and do not care." Story 133. One-uppers. God, I despise them. I can't even see humanity in them. Story 134. Pretend to be your friend in front of you but then talk negatively about you behind your back. Secretly hates you but in front of you they are your best wishers. Story 135. People who act friendly with everyone while spreading gossip about them at the same time exhibit snake behavior. Story 136. The one who hates you because of the way others love you. Story 137. People who try to appear extremely kind but are selfish deep down should just acknowledge their true nature. Story 138. The ones who think something always needs to be said, like, "Please let me have 5 minutes of silence. It is okay, I promise. No, I do not feel awkward." Story 139. I am honest. I say things to your face. No, it is just an excuse to be rude and mean. Story 140. People who have an answer for everything and are incapable of saying "I do not know." Story 141. If the person believes he can do anything because he is stronger. Story 142. Victim mentality. People who create 99% of their own problems but somehow it is never their fault. It is always everyone else's or some universal energy conspiring against them. These are the most manipulative types I have ever met. They think it is up to everyone else to coddle them and fix their problems, and when you do not and instead suggest what they could do, you are the person who does not care. I really cannot stand these types of people. Story 143. Sin number 1. No sense of humor. Sin number 2. Being a bully. Sin number 3. Being boring. Story 144. I can't stand people who pretend to be virtuous or morally superior but are really just hypocrites. It is frustrating when someone's actions do not align with the values they claim to uphold. Story 145. If a flag represents your personality, you are not interesting or unique. However, you are very annoying. Please stay away from me. Story 146. The whole "I say what I want and don't care what people think" crowd is usually just an excuse to be rude to everyone and not take ownership of how they say certain things. Story 147. People who are rude for no reason and hide it as being genuine. Story 148. Contrarians are exhausting to deal with. Adults acting like toddlers, but at least toddlers are in a developmental phase they grow out of. Imagine spending your life deliberately not doing things just because no one tells you what to do. I will say the find out effect is often entertaining with these people though. Story 149. People who pretend to be nice and speak negatively behind others' backs with certain individuals. Story 150. People with a barely functional intelligence quotient who dismiss and argue absolute and proven scientific facts. I do not even argue back. I do not get paid to deal with that. They just want to disagree and are entirely complacent in being unproductive for life. There is no convincing them either. You could have hard evidence in the palm of your hand and they will say no. Story 151. I don't know if it's so much hate, but it really clashes with my own disposition, and I can't get away from the energy of loud, rude, obnoxious behavior fast enough. It's that person who embarrasses their friends with their behavior towards staff or dominates social groups in their need to be the center of attention. Or that person in the classroom who completely changes the energy of the room when they are present. I'm sure it works for them, but don't expect me to stick around. Story 152. People who have the "woe is me" mindset. I met someone once who told me that everyone leaves them, so they have no one. They would always talk about how much they hate their life and end with, "I guess this is why no one likes me." It is a red flag and makes me think that people do not want to stick around someone like that for a reason. Story 153. People who make fun of you, joke, and say they are only joking. Story 154. Those who have a mother-in-law personality are all nice and sweet, but beneath the surface, they throw negativity at you while appearing very sweet. Story 155. People who are lazy but act like they tried their best, offering a million excuses for why they could not get something done. Story 156. The type of person who wants to play devil's advocate in every conversation. Bravo, you have seen it done well once when it was relevant. You are not part of the intelligentsia because you play the same card every time you are part of a meeting. Most of the time, you are just derailing the conversation for your own vanity. Story 157. Self-victimizing people who truly blame themselves when things go wrong in their life. Cannot stand them. Story 158. Hypocrite. If you partied in Bangkok or Manila, just own it. The same applies to other things. Do not act like you have the authority to tell others how to live. Instead, share what you did and how to avoid problems. Story 159. When someone thinks they are the comedian in the room and makes jokes the entire time but also absolutely refuses to laugh at anyone else's jokes. Story 160. Someone who plays the victim 24/7. Not even sure if that is a personality, but whatever it is needs to stop. Story 161. Queen bees usually refer to girls. I have never seen a guy do that. It is a mix of a Karen and a pick-me. Basically, they wait for you to do things for them, but the worst part is that they expect you to do it, and if you don't, they become aggressive. Story 162. People who talk without thinking. Every tiny thought they have comes out of their mouth, and most of it is nonsense. Story 163. Bipolar, especially bipolar teenage boys, can be unpredictable. 1 minute they are praising you, and the next they are demanding something. I am aware this is actually called love bombing. Story 164. Anyone who believes they are the only person in charge of things. Story 165. I really dislike conceited people. They never live up to how great they think they are. Story 166. The phrase, I speak what is on my mind because I am a truthful person, is often used by individuals who are inconsiderate and hurt people's feelings without reason. Story 167. I would not say that I dislike a personality unless it has a serious character or morality flaw. Story 168. In customer service, I deal with many different personalities, sometimes even from the same person. Honestly, not every personality connects with another. That is why we have diplomacy to keep everyone from upsetting each other. Story 169. People who go out of their way to put others down or embarrass them. For example, if you receive a compliment and someone else overhears and tries to play it down, like a pick-me person, or people who try to one-up you, it is unpleasant. Story 170. If I can get along with introverted, intuitive thinking, judging types, I can get along with most. I hate racists and xenophobes. Story 171. Honestly, I absolutely hate anyone who is condescending to me or others. Story 172. Gullible people who are nice to everybody are often two-faced. Story 173. I cannot stand naive people. If a grown adult cannot face hard facts, I want nothing to do with them. Also, people who constantly have emotional breakdowns and ask for help but make no effort to work on their problems themselves. For example, the kind of people who might rant about their problems on social media and take no advice from others, but cry all over again when the same problem arises later. Story 174. Those autistic children who confirm every stereotype for the rest of us. You know the type: thick glasses, big teeth, carrying around teddy bears, believing in Santa until you're 8. We're into My Hero Academia like it was a religion, always crying and insulting you because they cannot help it. Well, I do not care. I know you cannot look autistic, and I am not sure what makes them look it, but they do appear autistic, as in you could look at them on the street and confidently say they are autistic. As you can see, I am the type of person who has no remorse for people with autism spectrum disorder, severe or not. Call me a bad person all you want, but I just dislike other autistic people. Story 175. When working with them, they have an "it is only correct if I do it" mentality. Story 176. out for themselves or just cannot see past their own goals and objectives, especially at work. I understand being a team player is not always for everyone. However, if you are solely focused on yourself when there is something bigger to accomplish together, you are just difficult to work with. Story 177. I am just real and I tell it like it is. Uses this as an excuse to be needlessly critical, abrasive, rude, and inappropriate. Story 178. The one-upper. You just won $500 on a scratch-off? Well, they once won $10,000. Your father was diagnosed with cancer? Well, both of their parents and their dog have cancer. You were taking a vacation to Hawaii? Well, they own a condo in Hawaii and are traveling to Samoa. Story 179. Hypocrisy. Inconsistency between words and actions, being two-faced. For example, praising others to their face but slandering them behind their backs. Story 180. I'm a little jealous of this type. The bright, bubbly, energetic type. They always have an easy time making friends. Story 181. Narcissistic. Everyone with this personality is an unpleasant person. Story 182. Those with no sense of privacy include nosy people and attention seekers who post every moment of their lives on social media. Some are overly open about their personal problems or intimate details. They should keep their secrets to themselves and mind their own business. Story 183. Ultramasculine men who start reacting strongly to anything they consider to be related to homosexuality. I suppose spending years hiding one's true identity can lead to intense frustration. Story 184. I do not like serious people. They are strange. I apologize if I offended anyone. Story 185. Know-it-all attitude. I can do whatever I want and my service now. No manners in public forum. Ugh, makes me sick. Story 186. Haughtiness is the smug smile some people have when they believe they have an advantage over everyone else, physically or mentally. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.